Okay, so we're about to embark on our final project. This is what this big 12 by 16 inch piece of paper has been waiting for. Okay, what you've been uh, setting this aside, now it's time to break it out. Excuse me. So we have our study that we did of our figure of the picture of the activity we enjoy that we finalized on. And so we're going to use this to increase onto here, okay? Now we're going to basically use the same method of gesture drawing to get the size increased onto here, okay? So it wouldn't make sense to draw this figure that size on this piece of paper. That would just leave you a overabundant amount of space to create in the background, okay? So if we increased it so that then it was maybe about this big, that would work better, okay? We want to fill up that page, okay, to get it to fit on there. So how are we going to do that, okay? So first off, what I would do is kind of mark it out, placement. Where is the high and where is the low in terms of charting out where I want this, the bottom and the top of this to be. So I'm going to say maximum height to be around here and the lowest point to be somewhere around here. Okay, that's how much of the page I want to fill. Now I've kind of plotted this out. Okay, so just kind of marking kind of lightly. You can make these marks if you want to. I would suggest doing that in case you're not used to or familiar with drawing large. Okay, so if I can get this thing in focus. Okay, so basically I'm going to just do a gesture drawing of this on here larger. So, because I don't want to just struggle slowly on this, kind of draw ahead really slow and draw the neck and draw the shoulders and draw the arm, because then I might just end up with it being about this big. Okay, I need to kind of work quickly, lay it out here. Okay, just like I did here in the gesture drawing. Okay, so essentially I'm gonna make a gesture drawing of that on here real quickly, increasing the size, and hopefully trying to look at all those spaces again, but just increasing the size. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of get into it and maybe think of kind of like placement marks of where things need to be at in order to do that. Okay, so let's do this. Let's find like a midpoint on here. What is sort of, if I put a mark here, here's a top mark. Right? What would be sort of a midpoint on here? Okay, so I would think this is kind of halfway. So if I put a mark across here kind of halfway, look what's happening. It's kind of hitting the top of that knee right there. Okay, that's a very important indicator of where that knee needs to be. So let me just look over here. I'm not going to measure. I'm just going to like say from here to here what's halfway. I'm going to say that's about right here. Okay, so now I have a good idea where that's at. Okay. Now eventually we'll get into the gesture drawing, but this is a good way to approach it, to kind of break up the space so you got a large expanse here. Okay. So almost like a grid, if you ever work from a grid, except for this is a very simplified approach to it, like a grid. Okay, so let me just break this up into other quarter type sections. Okay, very important things happen here is showing me. where this is and where that is. Okay, so if I just kind of put out a line across here, about like that. And now let's do that here. So I'm going to, let's say, that's about halfway through there. So look, very important things happen here. That's where the shoulder is. That's where the chin is. Really important stuff. So I'm just going to put that out here. Like that. Okay. So, getting these things kind of angled. Kind of get them more horizontal. Okay. Alright, so we can do this vertically too. Okay, so halfway between here and here. So let me just kind of just doing that, that's going to help me kind of see relation of things a little bit through here. So let me find what's halfway between this space. So I'm going to say that's sort of the midpoint right there, right? So let me put what's the midpoint right here, where I want this, in the center. Now I could put this off center or this way a little bit if I wanted to, or a little high or a little low. You determine what would look best on your figure. It might look better if I have a little over to the side. You know, particularly if it was like someone coming up to kick a soccer ball or being ready to make a goal. You know, you could possibly put, you know, if it was a basketball player who's going up to make a shot, you know, you could potentially put the goal in there. Eventually, we're going to create an environment. So placing it center isn't necessarily always the best thing. So, but I feel like for this, that'll be fine. Okay, so I'm going to place sort of the center point coming through here, right? So, you know, I'm not really sure on the width. You know, these are kind of rectangles. They're not squares. Now, if you've ever done a grid, you know, a grid really is measured. We're doing a very loose grid, okay, kind of thing. So I'm going to kind of go with something maybe perhaps kind of like that. That looks like a similar kind of rectangle, maybe even a little closer. Now I'm making all these lines a little light, but I'm making them a little darker than probably what I want to, but I want you to be able to see it on the camera. So let's say about right there, okay? So I'm going to be able to erase all this when I'm done. I don't want to make it really dark, okay? So now I can do some of my gesture drawing and kind of reflect on that. And then at some point I may end up ignoring the grid. I just want to then kind of relate more to this. So doing gesture drawing. I can tell this already helped me because I wanted to go down below this, but I can see the shoulder really is above that line. Okay. So, all right, there it is. All right, now I just have to kind of really look at things. It'll probably really help for me to, I'm looking at my screen. This is all out of focus. Hopefully it'll focus up pretty quick. So let me try this and see if that helps. Generally that does seem to work a little better for it. So it's very light, and I don't want to do it dark because I want to probably, I am going to erase this. It's not going to stay like that. So I'm just really looking to make sure that everything kind of fits within that place. And that kind of rough grid, I feel like, really helps with things a lot. Okay, so that's the first part. I'm going to pause. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to erase the grid, start to make my simple shapes. Okay, so this is going to be the second part of enlarging my drawing on here. Okay, I did a simplified grid and I did kind of a rough, loose drawing within that, of that gesture drawing. Now I'm going to do the simplified shapes, okay? Now the simplified shapes are eventually going to be erased, so I don't want to make it really dark. Okay, this is where, again, I can use these kind of siding lines to kind of help me. Now, if you've ever used a grid before, I'm looking at these spaces here as I'm drawing this in terms of how they relate to one another. I think this needs to come up a little further. So maybe I need to do a little more kind of a loose gesture of the simplified shape. So let's do that. Because that's the thing about it is, you got to be willing to flux. If I put down this like very dark, definite line, that means I'm very certain and definite. I'm searching. I'm not definite. I'm not that good. Not many people are to be able to say, well, there's that, and there's that, and there's that, and then there's that. I have to kind of just search and kind of make several lines, and somewhere in there, it's right. Okay, so it's searching. It's like act and then react. Okay, you act and you're like, does that? Yeah, maybe not. It's like you're taking aim and then you're re-aiming, based on that aim. So let's say if you had a rifle, okay, you had a sight or a scope on it, and you take a shot at a bullseye, okay, and then you go up, you're aiming straight bullseye, but then you find out it's a little off to the right, lower right. So what you can do, you're gonna make adjustments to your scope. So then it shows a little better. So it's like you kind of apply that idea. It's like you shoot and then you adjust, and then you shoot and you readjust, and you shoot and readjust. So I'm constantly making these kind of flexibility, but you got to be flexible. That's the main idea I believe I'm really trying to get across here. You got to be flexible, willing to not say for certain what things are and go back and then be certain. So it's almost like a rough draft. When you go to write a paper for English or a class or something, you got some big paper you got to write. Do the words just come right out? Do you just all of a sudden you're able to explain everything you want to straight out? Or do you have to kind of really think it out and kind of edit and then re-edit and then make note card? I mean, there's a lot of process in terms of writing a paper. Same thing in a drawing. You're not going to make your best drawing just straight out. You gotta work at it. It's kind of like sculpting. Talk about drawing like sculpting. You're sort of in sculpting. There's a process called additive and subtractive. You add and subtract, add and subtract. I got some issues here in the neck, the head. I'll work all that out in a little bit, so we can kind of move on to some other areas. I guess that's the thing about it is drawing is a process. And after a while, you gain confidence. We all want to be confident, but it comes with time in terms of drawing constantly and making it look, artists make it look easy a lot of times. Of course, the thing about it is they want to show their best work. But you don't see everything that went into developing those skills. You just see the final product. So I'm hoping I'm doing everything correctly. I'm looking at like this little space here, looking at this space here to make sure and see if I'm getting that. Like I'm a little off there, so I need to move that over. Trying to keep it as light as I can on the pencil, just don't bear down on it. It makes it really hard to erase. I'm really thinking about the distance between here and here as I'm drawing that. So that something there, I need to fix that. And that. Not going up quite far enough there. The thing about it is, if I was drawing things dead set, then I found out later I was way off, and then that probably means I've probably drawn really dark, not gonna be able to erase my marks. Now I have to end up erasing a lot of things in order to fix it, and then I may not want to fix it, and then I just got a drawing that's just not right. This way, staying flexible, I can fix all those things before I make it permanent. Something that I'm going to really use and stay with. And the structure of this part really matters. Figure out what's going on with this head. See, I got a little high on this line right here. I think it should be maybe right here, which is, you know, why I'm having to bring the chin down a little bit. I think it's going to help. All right, so that is a very roughed in kind of version. Now I'm going to really kind of spend a little more time kind of making this a little more corrected. There are lines called restating. So now that I'm making the lines a little bit darker, that's called restating. I'm making them a little more stated, you know, a little more certain of what they are and where they are. I still don't want to go really dark because, again, this is only going to be temporary. We're going to use this then for the basis of what we're going to do for this in the end, just providing the structure. Stay flexible. Okay, pretty good about that. So I'm looking at in relation to this in here, and this shape is right here. You know, if this is called a negative shape. If that shape is related to that one, I probably have done a good job of drawing that. Time to draw like a ball shape in there. The ball shape is kind of behind the shoulder over here, so I'm going to kind of indicate that a little bit. And there we go. Okay, so from here, it's just a matter of going in and erasing some things. So eventually we're going to erase all this, okay? For now, you can just kind of go in and clean this up. But, this is sort of the subtractive process. It's like I can go in and kind of almost, subtracting things to refine them. To get them to where I want them. Adding, subtracting. It's almost like you're sculpting. Cutting away material, adding material. This is just clarifying. Now, if you have a big eraser, you might want to do that. I got a fairly new eraser here. Now, the steel in the end looks kind of sketchy. That's okay. This isn't the final project. This isn't the final drawing. We're going to work on top of this. And in the end, we're going to really lose all of this, okay? I know we're doing all this work. You're thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to get rid of this. But you'll see the purpose of it. So for now, I'm just kind of sculpting and kind of cleaning things up. Refining some things. I lost that. Got to bring it back. All right. So at this point now, I can go and erase the grid. Kind of loose grid. And this is why you want to draw lightly. We're going to erase a lot of this. Now I'm starting to see some sort of smudging grays from my hand. You can see on my hand, it's gotten pretty dark, hasn't it? From kind of working across here. Later, I'm going to talk to you about the idea of using paper to kind of put your hand on so that you don't smudge your drawing too much, but that's okay. We're going to be putting other stuff down here, and that's not going to really cause a problem. I am seeing a few things from my angle where I'm looking at it because, you know, the camera's right in my head. I can't look straight down on it. I'm seeing some size issues with this foot a little bit. I might adjust a little bit. It looks kind of small, but of course it is also kind of squished because of you know, the foot, the way he's sitting on it. Kind of feel like I need to bring that up a little bit higher. That feels a bit better. Okay, maybe play with that a little more, but for now I just need to call it quits and make the end of this video. And maybe I'll fuss with a little bit more later as I kind of back up from it, take it all in, and look at it. But that's what we want. But for certain, do not make really dark lines on this at this point. You know, don't make like these really dark lines that you cannot erase, okay? That will still show through after you erase, okay? You just want to keep them kind of light and sketchy that you can go back and erase. But then also don't make these kind of lines. You know, they're just kind of like that. If you do that, you know, that's what I'm talking about. You know, making lines like that, just, you know, I find it much better if I do kind of searching kind of lines. You know, then if I wanted to make it a really nice crisp line later, I can do that, but I need to make sure their placement is right before I go and make these kind of singular kind of lines like that. So don't do that, okay? Try it my way. Try being loose, being flexible, adjusting things, kind of honing it in, okay? Just like with that ellipse in a way, okay? And that's it for where we're at on the lesson at this point, okay? And the project, okay? We're going to start talking about what we're going to do with this next. That'll be on the next class.